The cameras were rolling on what appeared to be another routine Family Feud taping when 61-year-old Sarah Torres walked onto the stage wearing a simple blue cardigan and sensible shoes, looking exactly like what she claimed to be, a retired traffic cop who had spent her career writing parking tickets. But what this quiet woman was about to reveal would leave Steve Harvey speechless and prove that sometimes the most dangerous people in the room are the ones who appear the most ordinary. It was a Wednesday afternoon at the Family Feud studios in Atlanta. Steve Harvey was in his element, that perfectly tailored navy suit gleaming under the studio lights, his energy filling the room with the warmth that had made him America's beloved host. The Torres family from Phoenix was facing off against the Martinez family from Dallas, and everything seemed set for another heartwarming episode about hard-working American families. But Sarah Torres wasn't just any retired police officer. She stood at the family podium with the relaxed posture of someone who had learned to appear completely unremarkable, her weathered hands clasped loosely in front of her, and her humble demeanor suggesting a woman who had never seen excitement beyond routine traffic stops. When Steve introduced the family during the opening segment, Sarah's responses painted a picture of ordinary service. "So Sarah," Steve had said during introductions, "tell us about your work with the police." "Well, Mr. Steve," Sarah had replied in her soft, measured voice that carried just a hint of authority buried deep beneath years of practiced normalcy, "I was a traffic officer for 25 years. Mostly parking tickets and speeding violations. Nothing too exciting. 25 years. That's dedication. What was the most interesting thing that happened to you on the job?" Sarah had paused, a brief shadow crossing her face before she smiled, that gentle smile of someone who had learned to deflect attention. "Oh, you know how it is. Sometimes people get pretty upset about parking tickets. But I always tried to be fair and keep the peace." Steve noticed something in Sarah's answer. It was humble in a way that seemed almost too practiced, too careful. The phrase "keep the peace" carried a weight that didn't quite match someone whose biggest challenge was angry drivers. The game progressed normally for the first 2 rounds. The Torres family was doing well, with Sarah surprising everyone by showing an unexpected knowledge of crime terminology and law enforcement procedures. But it was during the 3rd round, when the category was things that make someone brave, that Sarah's carefully constructed facade began to crack. Steve asked the question, "Name something a brave person might do to protect others." It was Sarah's turn at the podium. She stepped forward with a grace that seemed almost too fluid for a former traffic cop, and for just a moment her casual posture disappeared entirely, replaced by the bearing of someone who had faced real danger. "Go undercover," Sarah said quietly, but there was something in her voice, a knowledge, a history, a weight of experience that made the simple answer feel profound. The studio fell silent for just a beat longer than usual. Steve's eyebrows raised slightly. "Go undercover," Steve repeated slowly. That's a very specific answer, Sarah. That's not something traffic cops usually do." Sarah looked up at Steve, and for the first time since the cameras started rolling, her mask slipped completely. In that moment, he saw something in her eyes that changed everything. Not the contentment of a retired traffic officer, but the complex burden of someone who had lived multiple lives in service of justice. "Mr. Steve," Sarah said, her voice barely audible but carrying an authority that commanded the entire studio's attention, "can I tell you something about going undercover?" The audience leaned forward. There was something in Sarah's tone that suggested they were about to venture into territory far more dangerous than game show entertainment. "Of course, Sarah, what do you know about undercover work?" Sarah took a deep breath, her shoulders straightening in a way that transformed her entire presence. The gentle traffic cop was disappearing, replaced by someone else entirely. "I wasn't really a traffic cop, Mr. Steve. I mean, I was, but that was my cover." Steve's mouth fell open slightly. "Your cover?" "For 25 years, I was an undercover detective, specializing in drug cartel operations. The traffic cop thing, that was just what people saw." The studio erupted in gasps. Steve's signature stop gesture went up as he processed what he'd just heard. The Torres family was staring at Sarah as if seeing her for the first time. "Sarah," Steve said, walking closer to her, Are you telling me that for 25 years, while people thought you were writing parking tickets, you were actually infiltrating drug cartels, breaking up trafficking rings, taking down some of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the Southwest? Steve Harvey had hosted thousands of contestants, heard thousands of stories, but this was unlike anything he'd ever encountered. The way Sarah spoke, the calm precision, the understated authority, it was clear this wasn't Tanti. This was a professional who had lived in the shadows. But what Sarah revealed next would prove that her undercover heroism was just the beginning of an extraordinary story. Mr. Steve, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger with each word, in 25 years, I was responsible for taking down 15 major drug cartels, operations that were moving millions of dollars worth of narcotics through Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. The studio was completely silent. This wasn't game show content anymore. This was listening to a real-life crime fighter describe decades of dangerous work. 15 cartels, Steve repeated. Sarah, that's like something out of a movie. Sarah looked out at her family, then back at Steve. Her daughter was leaning forward, hearing details she'd never been told. Her son was staring with newfound respect at the mother he'd thought spent her career dealing with parking meters. The Hernandez organization, the Morales trafficking ring, Los Serpientes, the Phoenix pipeline, the El Paso connection. Sarah's voice was steady as she listed names that meant nothing to the studio audience but represented years of dangerous work. Each operation took months, sometimes years to infiltrate. You become someone else. You live someone else's life. Your family thinks you're just writing tickets. Steve stopped moving entirely. Sarah, when you say infiltrate, you mean you went inside these organizations. I lived with them, earned their trust, became part of their operations, until we had enough evidence to bring them down. The cameras caught Steve's expression changing from amazement to something deeper, a recognition that he was standing in the presence of someone who had risked everything to protect people she'd never meet. Sarah, how many arrests are we talking about? Sarah shifted slightly, and for the first time, a hint of pride crossed her face. Over my career, 237 arrests, 63 major convictions, an estimated $40 million and drug seizures. The studio erupted again. Steve's mouth was hanging open. 237 people? Steve asked. Sarah, do you understand what you're telling me? You're not a traffic cop, you're like a one-man war against drug cartels. I had a good team, Sarah said modestly, and I was good at becoming invisible. People see a middle-aged woman writing parking tickets. They don't see a threat. But Steve was just getting started in understanding the magnitude of Sarah's secret career. Sarah, your family, did they know what you really did? Sarah shook her head. They knew I was in law enforcement. They thought it was traffic duty, safer that way, for them and for my operations. The cameras caught the Torres family's expressions, shock, pride, and a dawning understanding of why their wife and mother had sometimes seemed distant, why she'd worked such irregular hours, why she'd occasionally come home with injuries she'd attributed to difficult drivers. But what Sarah revealed next would prove that her undercover work had consequences that lasted long after the arrests were made. Mr. Steve, Sarah said, there's something else, something I've carried for all these years. Steve sensed they were approaching something even deeper. What's that, Sarah? In 25 years of undercover work, you see things. You learn things about people, both the criminals and the victims. Some of the people I helped put away, they had families. Children who didn't know their parents were criminals. Steve's expression softened. What did you do? For the past 15 years, I've been visiting the families of people I arrested, making sure their kids are okay. Some of them are in college now because of scholarship funds I helped set up. Anonymous funds, of course. The studio was completely silent. Steve Harvey, who had made a career of quick wit and perfect timing, was speechless. How many families, Sarah? 43 families, 112 children who lost parents to the criminal justice system. Kids who had nothing to do with their parents' choices but paid the price anyway. Steve removed his navy suit jacket without a word and walked to Sarah. He draped it around her shoulders with the reverence usually reserved for military honors. "Sarah," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion, "you didn't just serve your community as an undercover officer, you've been serving the families of both victims and perpetrators for decades." But Sarah wasn't finished. The walls of secrecy were crumbling, and more of her story emerged. "There's one more thing, Mr. Steve. The reason I came on this show." Steve, still processing everything he'd learned, looked at Sarah expectantly. 3 months ago, I got a letter from the daughter of Miguel Hernandez, the head of the first cartel I helped bring down. She's graduating from medical school next month. The letter said she wanted to thank the anonymous police officer who made sure she got a scholarship after her father was arrested. Sarah's voice broke slightly. She said she wanted to become a doctor to help people the way that officer helped her. She doesn't know it was me who arrested her father. And she doesn't know it was me who made sure she could go to college. Steve Harvey knelt down in front of Sarah Torres, right there on the Family Feud stage in front of millions of viewers. "Sarah," Steve said, "in 40 years of television I have never met anyone who embodies justice and mercy the way you do. You put criminals away, and then you made sure their children didn't pay for their parents' crimes." The audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation that seemed to last forever. But Steve had one more surprise for Sarah. "Ladies and gentlemen," Steve announced, "I'm going to do something I've never done before. Sarah Torres, you don't need to win money on this show to prove you're extraordinary. You already proven more than most law enforcement officers do in 10 careers." Steve pulled out his phone and made a call that would change everything. "FBI field office? This is Steve Harvey from Family Feud. I need to speak with someone about honoring a very special undercover detective." Within minutes, the FBI regional director was on speakerphone, confirming what Sarah had been too modest to emphasize. She was legendary among federal law enforcement as the officer who could disappear into any criminal organization and emerge with prosecutable evidence. "Detective Torres," came the voice through the speakers, "your work disrupted major drug trafficking throughout the Southwest. The Hernandez takedown alone prevented an estimated $10 million in narcotics from reaching the streets." The episode that aired became one of the most shared Family Feud moments in the show's history. But more importantly, it sparked a national conversation about the hidden heroes in law enforcement and the complex nature of justice in Attica. Sarah's story inspired the creation of the Silent Heroes Foundation, which helps support the children of incarcerated parents and provides educational opportunities for families affected by the criminal justice system. Miguel Hernandez's daughter, Dr. Maria Hernandez, became the foundation's first major spokesperson when she learned the truth about who had helped her. Today, Sarah Torres still lives quietly in Phoenix, but now she does it without the burden of secrecy. Her undercover career is over, but her work with affected families continues. Every month, she receives letters from young people whose lives were changed by educational opportunities they never knew came from the officer who arrested their parents. Steve Harvey often tells the story of Sarah Torres when he speaks about the complexity of heroism. "I thought I was meeting a traffic cop," Steve says. "Instead, I met someone who understood that true justice doesn't end with an arrest. It begins with healing the communities that crime tears apart." The jacket Steve gave Sarah that day hangs in her modest home office, next to photos of 43 families and 112 young people whose lives were changed by an undercover detective who never forgot that behind every criminal is a family that needs protection too. Sarah Torres proved that heroes don't always wear badges on the outside. Sometimes they hide them completely, spending decades in the shadows, protecting society from threats it never sees, then spending more decades healing the wounds that justice sentence leaves behind.